Today's project is a 1982 Honda CB900F Super Sport. So this would actually be, rather than a custom paint, this would be more of a restoration. The process, the very first thing we do is we check out everything, see where the dents and dings and whatever needs to repair is. And let's see. This one's actually in pretty good shape. You know, we got some rust under there, that'll be taken care of with blasting. A few little minor dings, that's too minor to pull, so we won't worry about that. Other than that, it looks pretty clean. Oh, and then I'll also take measurements so I know exactly where all these decals are going to be going back on. So the tank looks pretty good. The tailpiece looks really good. Just dirty. This needs to come off. This is plastic, this is metal. This I'll blast down to the metal. For the plastic, I'll actually use a dual action sander to sand. Got the front fender here. Again, taking note of how everything goes on so that it's reassembled the exact same. Customer was kind enough to supply the replaced decal, so we'll make sure that everything is here the way that it's supposed to be. Got two side covers. Main thing on this is making sure these tabs are still good. Plastic gets brittle over time, and these tend to break. But if these are solid, it's really a nice thing. This has gone down on this side. You can see a lot of scrapes and such. But not too bad, just a little bit of filling. That'll be good. This one, couple scrapes. Also really good shape. Then we'll get going on this job. Got to close off all the openings for this. I've got a collection of these. They used to send these on the gas tanks back in the old days. Just put it in, and then I use, it's called either rope caulk cord or dum-dum. The old guys will call it dum-dum. You put that around there to seal it. And then on the underside, where the petcock goes, I've got this closed off, also some dum-dum there too. So now, just good old hot soapy water wash. And you might think that this is something doesn't need to be shown, but you'd be surprised. If this isn't done right, you can ruin an entire paint job because you get dirt here, you touch here, suddenly the paint's not going to stick on the other side. So this is a very important part. I just use Dawn. Make sure you don't put any new dents into the tank while you're washing it. On the top, I like to use just a good old scrubby. The bottom, I use a brush mainly because I've cut up my hands too many times to use a scrubby anymore. You just learn what works for you. So I'll use a scrubby and a sponge on the top, making sure everything's super clean, and a brush on the underside, and maybe I'll use the brush like right in these areas so that I don't like damage my fingers. Use common sense. If I didn't have this completely clean and I started sanding or stripping it, I could push impurities into the paint, thereby affecting the paint job after, when I get to that point. So again, it can't be overstressed. Hot soapy water to get everything clean. First step all the time. Okay, so I just finished up with the soap and water clean. Next, I'm going to take out anything that needs to be removed, such as got a little rubber grommet here. Let's pop that out. Softened, like the edges have been softened out of the screwdriver, and that's what I use for popping these out. Comes out pretty easy. If you have any difficulties, add a little dish soap there. Make it a little bit slicker. Be careful, you want to be able to reuse everything. What else we got? Okay, and then that's it for those. Got some rust on the threads of this. Need the safety glasses, don't want to get something in the eyeball. Okay, for this, I have both a steel and a brass wire wheel. I like doing it in reverse because then it seems to grip better and it's not the usual way that it's going. Use a little one here. If this is too big, then I would switch over to my Dremel. Yep, need the Dremel. Might as well have everything nice and perfect now because we're not going to want to be taking Dremels and anything abrasive once the paint is on. Grab a little wax and grease remover. I prefer, it used to be DX330. Now it's suddenly a one choice SX330, but same thing. Clean this up, make sure there's no, we don't want any of that. We want this squeaky clean. Yes, I should have my gloves on right now and my mask, but this is just for the threads. When I wax and grease remover the entire tank, then I'll have proper equipment on. And right now I'm cheating a little. This does dry out the hands, so you have to be careful. You end up with something else going on. And also, your skin is your largest organ. It does absorb. So, next time I'll wear the gloves. I'm almost done. But now you can see it's coming clean. If I can wipe it on and not have anything coming off, that's what we want. And then of course after you apply the wax and grease remover, you want to make sure you take it back off again. And you want to wipe it off before it dries, otherwise you have to re-wet it, meaning put fresh stuff on again and then wipe it off before it's dry. There. Now we have clean threads. Okay, and then to protect them so that my customer doesn't have to deal with trying to tap them out, tap off the paint, I'll throw some masking tape on. Two different types of masking tape here, both by 3M. This one, I've never had a problem with this with residue. This is water-based, a little bit less expensive. So I use them both. This I use for anything that's going to be on for longer than a week. This I'll use for like masking. There. So that's good to go. Now the top of this, we have this also. Nothing here can be removed. Well, let's clean that up. There. Now that's nice and all rust is gone, just fresh metal. And another clean spot on this rag. Wax and grease remover. Take it off while it's still wet. Nice and clean. Gloves back off. So since this still has to be blasted, I'm going to place this back on. Again, it's in there. Turn it. Okay, this one doesn't get tight at all. As you can see, these all have different heights. You just got to find the one that works. They're made for Harleys, but they work on Honda. There. Now that's nice and tight. And then I'll again put another piece of the rope caulk cord around here to make sure that this is nice and solid and tight, so then when I strip this, we won't be getting any debris into the gas tank. Sure, you can rinse it all, better to not get it in there in the first place. Okay, so we have the part hot soapy water clean. The next thing, since there's nothing else to take off on this, will be removing decals. Now with decals, it all depends on whether or not it's been cleared over. This actually, well, let's just find out. We'll take the heat gun, and when you're using the heat gun, always make sure you're not melting the part. It's plastic, it can melt. And this part's hot, don't put it on anything flammable, put it on a concrete floor or make a stand for it. Now the whole point of heating it up is so that you reactivate the adhesive on the back of the decal and thereby allowing it to be removed. These are so old. New decals, you can typically take them off in one piece. The older ones, they can really be a bear. If I use I know some people think, oh, just use a razor blade, but if you don't do it right, you end up cutting into it. I'm going to try heat a little bit more before I resort to the razor blade. And yes, you can burn your fingers too, just from transferring the heat. But this is starting to come off nice. Good one. So now we have the soap and water clean, decals removed, the adhesive removed. So next is wax and grease remover. I use One Choice SX330 from PPG. There are other wax and grease removers. I'm a fan of the PPG line as well as House of Color. Those are my two main product lines that I use. So just happen to have the SX330 in stock, so that's what I'll go with. With this, going to want to have eye protection, respiratory protection, and gloves. But while I'm shooting the video, I'll hold off on this and Just breathe a little bit of it just so that I can talk at the same time. And this I'm doing on the floor instead of on my workstation with the towels on it, because I don't want to get the towels saturated with wax and grease remover and then toss them into the laundry, because you're not really supposed to throw solvent type rags into the wash. It's not good for the washer, and it's not good for the water supply that it's going to drain into. So with wax and grease remover, I'll grab 3 towels. One's to apply the product, which you apply generously, and then the other one is to wipe it back off. Optimum, you apply it generously on one side, wipe it off one direction, and then do the other side. The wax and grease remover floats all the contaminants up to the surface. Now, if I was to just let this dry, I'd have fish eyes. Fish eyes are where the paint can't adhere properly to the surface, and it just, you don't want to deal with stuff like that. So you always make sure while it's still wet, then you wipe it off one direction for optimum. It doesn't always work the best, but you know, you can at least get it going that way. And with the other one, I'll just make sure it's all good. And then also get the underside, because you don't want to touch the underside, have some sort of a contaminant that gets onto your hands or gloves, and then you end up getting it on the painted surface side. So you want to make sure all parts, top and bottom, everything is squeaky clean. And the underside I'm not going to worry so much about just being one direction, just because it's the underside. I just want to clean. And then we make sure that from here on out, now that we have a clean part, we don't get any contaminants on there. You don't go eating chicken with bare hands and then touching your parts, obviously, because then you're going to impair the flow of the paint. But at the same part, that's the extreme. The simplest, you don't touch your face and then touch the parts, because again, you're going to transfer oils. Paint and oil does not mix. Okay, one part down. Now I'm going to get the rest of these done, but you get the idea. Exact same thing with the metal. It's going to have just cleaned it like everything, but because of the smell, I'm going to go ahead and do it with the mask on, so I'll be turning off the video.